Hi everybody, welcome to Scott Julie 27. I'm your host Scott, and today we're going to have a very special episode. This is pretty much what you would call a Bruce Lee episode. Part of my motivation for doing this video was, okay, I did a video just recently. I put a clip on. Normally on my channel I put certain clips, you know, of underrated films, rare films, and one of those unfortunate rare Bruce Lee artifacts is a tidbit, actually. Okay, people in the United States are, like myself in the beginning, are accustomed to the dubbed Hong Kong Bruce Lee films, The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, The Way of the Dragon. Basically, like most of the films in Hong Kong, they localize a lot of the films from Hong Kong, whether it's Mandarin or Cantonese films, and they bring it to the United States. And what they do is they put it into English, and a lot of the time, because they're afraid that the Westerners are not going to understand, you know, Eastern humor, or things will be lost in translation, they cut certain scenes out. And most of the time it doesn't make sense by the time the final product is around. And even because they had to cut those scenes out, they had to change the storyline a little bit. They had to kind of do the dialogue differently from what the original script was. And one of the greatest examples of all the Bruce Lee films is The Way of the Dragon. A lot of people are accustomed to the English dub version of The Way of the Dragon, or they call it Return of the Dragon. That is the greatest example of what happens when you bring a film from Hong Kong and you bring it here. Now, one of the big examples of that scene was in the very beginning of the movie when Bruce Lee was in Da Vinci Airport in Rome. The airport scene, the entire airport sequence.
Has landed 1/2 hour ahead of schedule.
What people don't know is that in the original Cantonese, untampered Way of the Dragon, the character Tang Long, played by Bruce Lee, does not speak English at all. And that was the argument that even Nora Mao's character, Miss Chen, was complaining to him about when he didn't realize that the thugs in the restaurant, you know, when he came out of the bathroom, they were the thugs, and he didn't know that because he doesn't know a word of English, and it's not addressed in the English version.
We'll be back for your answer. Let's go. Excuse me. Watch where you're going.
Oh, sure.
It's so crazy. You don't know these people. Why did Uncle send you?
你哋記住，今晚無論點都要俾佢答覆我㗎啦。Let's go。
對唔住啊。
下次小心啲啊！
真係冇你收啊！你連一句英文都唔識，我阿叔叫你嚟做咩？哼！
Little things like that. And then when Bruce Lee, in the beginning of the scene in the airport, goes to, you know, he goes into a restaurant. And it's really funny because I read the autobiography of Jackie Chan, My Life in Action, and he talks about this when he first comes to the United States for the first time in, I think, 1981, when Cannonball Run was around that time. He couldn't speak a word of English, and he was actually in the airport wanting to order breakfast. And what he had to do was he had to call his agent all the way in Hong Kong to ask him, how do you say, I want to order eggs? So he had to do that. He had to keep calling his agent because Yeah, so he had to keep, and then the waiter will ask him something in English, and he doesn't know, so he has to call his agent again. So yeah, I think a lot of people like Jackie Chan could probably relate to the beginning of The Way of the Dragon, where Bruce Lee doesn't know a word of English, and he just wants to get something to eat. So he's asking this little girl, and she kind of freaks out on him, and that's a scene that was cut out from the English localization version. Is when he goes up to the girl and kind of in his own way asks her, I need something to eat. And then it's unfortunate that even in the English localization version, especially the ones that were by 20th Century Fox, when the VHS version, the Laserdisc version of the Bruce Lee Hong Kong films came to the United States, they even cut out the entire restaurant scene altogether because they didn't know how to translate that whole scene because it doesn't make sense. And they even went so far as to, like in the Miramax, when they re-released his films, from when Miramax re-released The Way of the Dragon, they kept that scene, except they tried to put everything in English, which did not make sense at all, because the waitress will go up to him and she goes,
May I help you?
Eggs? Eggs?
And actually, according to my mom and my father saw that movie when it first came out in the theaters in 1972. So she even told me that scene was there, and they even had the English in there. It wasn't in Cantonese, which was kind of strange, but she said that scene was there. So yeah, the waitress asks him, can I help? He goes, eggs. And she goes, huh? And he goes, eggs. You're like, what the hell? What does she not understand? And then she comes out with Campbell's soup, and you're like, what the hell is this? But what people don't know is that in the original Way of the Dragon, which was filmed in Cantonese, with some English because it was in Rome, so you had Bruce Lee, who spoke Cantonese, and the waiters and Uncle Wan and Miss Chen, they all spoke Cantonese, but then they also had the thugs who spoke English, and all the Romans, they spoke English. And sometimes Miss Chen or some of the waiters will talk to the thugs in English.
What are you doing?
You know what we are doing, don't they, fellas? You all should have left this restaurant.
You want to step outside?
Sure.
Good.
So it was a mixture of Cantonese and English, especially when Norma and Bruce Lee goes to the bank.
Miss Chan, how are you?
This is Mr. Tang. He wants to deposit some money.
My friend.
你有幾多錢啊？攞出嚟啦！
This way.
So yeah, in the original Way of the Dragon, when the waitress goes up to him and says, "May I help you?" he looks at her and he goes,
雞蛋。
啊？
雞蛋。
which in Cantonese it means eggs, and he was speaking to her in Cantonese. So it's just little things like that, and then because she didn't understand, now Bruce Lee has to look at the menu, and it's all in English. He doesn't know what it says. He just has to point to anything. So when she comes out, then it's like, he didn't even know what he ordered until he saw it. So yeah, that scene was actually pretty funny, but I wonder how many people have run into that when they've gone into foreign countries. So yeah, I mean, So yeah, unfortunately, The Way of the Dragon suffered a huge backlash when it came to translating the original Hong Kong edition into English, and they had to kind of work their way around it by cutting scenes out and kind of redoing the dialogue a little bit, which in the end, not only is the American audience and audiences around outside of Asia are now going to be accustomed to that unfortunate version, which I myself was when I was growing up. When I grew up, that was the first Bruce Lee edition I saw, until I realized that it was not the real version, that there were Cantonese Mandarin versions, and when I saw it, it was like, whoa, very different, but actually to me it's a lot better.
Let him know. If I see him here again, he won't leave alive. Tell him.
He told us not to come and cause any more trouble.
Get them out.
Hurry up and pick up everybody.
你翻譯俾佢聽。如果佢再嚟搞事，印住佢個豬頭。講啦！He told us not to come and cause any more trouble. 搬出去。Hurry up and pick up everybody.
You are crazy.
I'm warning you.
Hey, Alung, don't bother yourself.
Lay off.
You're crazy！ 我話俾你知。
龍哥，佢唔識聽你講㗎。
So not only are people in the United States accustomed to that version, which is very unfortunate, but yeah, it actually will kind of kill the integrity of the original movie. So in some way, people might be a little critical of that film. They might think, okay, what the hell's wrong with Bruce Lee? I mean, he's not really that great of a filmmaker. People in Hong Kong, people in China, they're not really that great filmmakers. If they're making films like this, that doesn't make sense to us. But what they don't understand is that, as I was saying before, and also Jackie Chan's films suffered for that as well. Oh my gosh, one of the examples I can think of is Armor of God Part 2, Operation Condor, and Police Story 3 Super Cop. That was, oh gosh, when I saw those two movies in the theaters, I was excited because I already saw the Hong Kong films. I love the Hong Kong versions of those movies. But when I went to see it in the theaters here, when it was just Operation Condor and Super Cop, I was first of all, I wanted to see it on the big screen. Second of all, I had no idea. Okay, I was expecting that they may have dubbed it like they did with Rumble in the Bronx, which is another unfortunate situation that the Americans don't realize, is that Rumble in the Bronx, was filmed a few years before it was released here, and they cut out a myriad of scenes from the original. And I mean, I didn't know that until much later myself. So yeah, that was another very unfortunate example. But yeah, so when I saw that film, so when I saw Operation Condor and Super Cop in the theaters, I was appalled. I mean, I expected that they were going to dub, from Cantonese, but I was so appalled by the fact that they changed the beginning drastically, they changed the scenes drastically, they cut out so many scenes that actually, some of them were pretty important, but pretty funny. And, yeah, so I was really upset, and they even redid the soundtrack. They redid almost everything, to the point where you're thinking, okay, no wonder the film wasn't really that much of a success here. No wonder Jackie Chan is not getting the kind of notoriety that he deserves here, unlike in Hong Kong, because we keep localizing his freaking movies and not just leaving it alone for us to decide for ourselves and not insult our intelligence. And that's just one great, and I'm always talking about cultural unity and giving and showing movies in its purest forms and giving notoriety where notoriety is due. People in the United States, unfortunately, are not going to, yeah, so it's, to me, I just think like bringing movies together like that kind of supports cultural unity, and helps us appreciate, Hong Kong films. And because of that crap, I mean, people not only do not know who John Woo is, they don't really fully appreciate him because of what we do to his films. And even Chow Yun-fat, unfortunately, suffered that too. He could have been one of the greatest Asian action film stars of the United States. And all he had to do was take his style from Hong Kong and bring it here, but it did not happen. With all due respect to the director of Replacement Killers, I think John Woo should have directed that. I think John Woo should have made a film like he did with Mission Impossible 2, which I think was the greatest of all the Mission Impossible films. I mean, my gosh, he turned Ethan Hunt's character he turned him into a dark horse Japanese anime comic book character. It was awesome what John Woo did to the Mission Impossible series. And then when the rest came out, you're just like, oh great, now it's just like the first one. And I missed the John Woo version. So yeah, so unfortunately, Hong Kong films have suffered that, and it's very disappointing. It's very upsetting. In some cases, now in future episodes, I'm going to be releasing some things that are actually localized versions of the originals that to me were actually a lot better. I mean, there is an exception on just very rare films from Hong Kong. Very rare. What they all have in common, and here's one thing with Bruce Lee films. I gotta give the people who dubbed the movies credit. Yes, there were some films that were lost in translation, like The Way of the Dragon. But there was... The Big Boss, or in the United States, it's Fist of Fury. The Big Boss. The Big Boss, actually, I actually did like the dub versions of The Big Boss.
Now, you get out of here. I'm warning you. You bastards can't push us around. You want to fight? I'll take you on.
And another thing I liked about the localization version of The Big Boss is that Peter Thomas's score. I wish that Peter Thomas's score was in the original Mandarin version of The Big Boss. It was another composer. I don't want to say his name because I don't want to get it wrong. I think it is yeah, I don't want to get it wrong. But it was from a different composer. And I mean, okay, I mean, when you listen to it, it's the big boss.
哎，进来。这就是我们老板，老板。
Come on, he says it's okay.
Isabel, good evening.
But I definitely would have preferred Peter Thomas's orchestra and his score in that, because, man, he did a hell of a job on that. When you hear the intro to the big boss, you're, and yeah. So that's one of the things that I can take out of the localized versions that I do appreciate is the score that was in the US version. And yeah, so I mean, I do want to mention that other film, but I'd rather wait until another. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. Police Story. Police Story is one of Jackie Chan's greatest films ever made. It was the franchise. That was the one that really started it all. And I just wish the United States had that piece of Jackie Chan, especially when James Glickenhaus directed his version of The Protector. If people in the United States saw Jackie Chan when he was doing Police Story, he would have had way more notoriety in the 80s than he did the following decade, and even at that time. Jeez. So anyways, they did so many localizations of the Jackie Chan film, especially Police Story. They did so many localizations. When New Line Cinema got a hold, and Dimension Films got a hold of Police Story, at first I thought it was going to be okay, so in 1988, Police Story, so there were, I forgot what filmmakers it was, but they brought Police Story here, and they did the same thing, okay? They took there was a lot of scenes they did cut out from Police Story. They did do the dub version. They did dub the language into English.
Hey!
Right now I'm just a cop, but I might be a movie star someday. I might have to kiss my leading ladies real passionately. What'll she do then? Kill herself?
She's jealous because she loves you. I'll try to explain to her.
What for? She's got a one-track mind. She'll never understand me.
But she's mad because of me. You've got to be more kind.
No way. Not my style. If I started sweet-talking, I'd have a million girls after me all the time. Next move is hers.
Wait. Tell me the honest truth. How do you feel about her?
Well, to be honest, I love her a lot. But loving her is one thing, apologizing is another. I know what she'll do when she gets home. She's gonna call to apologize to me. Gee, what a waste of food. Didn't I tell you? She just couldn't wait to call me up. Hello? Hello, hello, hello!
Hey, is that your girlfriend?
It's her. She can't help herself. She's speechless. Now, stop that crying. You shouldn't be so childish. What's that? No. If I was with a man, you'd think I was gay. You're too narrow-minded. Just think about what you did.
Hey,
What's
let
that?
me explain things to you.
No, don't. You curb that temper of yours. See? Show me some respect, all right, and stop crying. Bye-bye, bye-bye. I had to tell her. That's the only way she'll learn.
Even the people who did the dubbing in it were good. I mean, you actually liked the character and the voices who did the... I mean, it matched very well, and you just got attached to the 1988 version very easily.
How do I write this?
What's that?
Report.
I saw nothing.
But what was very special about that particular version, now this came out in 1988, you can only find it on VHS, it's very rare, but hopefully I will be allowed to present that in its full entirety. I do want to share it with you guys. But the score that was used in the film was by a composer named Kevin Bassenson, who did the score for Cyborg with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Unfortunately, if you look on Wikipedia on Police Story, even on Google, period, Kevin Bassenson is rarely ever credited for the score that he did for the localization version of Police Story. And actually, they retitled it Police Force, Jackie Chan's Police Force. So if you guys get a chance, go on Amazon, get the VHS version of Police Force and transfer it onto DVD or Blu-ray. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of the copy places, you know, that does transfers, I mean, they did that for, I'm not going to name the place, but they did that for me. And yeah, actually, wait. It's this one. I just kind of made this myself. I mean, I took the VHS cover, and yeah, the company is called Cinema Group Home Video. But yeah, I hope you guys can see it from the light glare. I'm going to try to do my best so you guys can see it. But yeah, this is the one. This is the VHS 1988 localized version of Police Story. And actually, I saw this version first. And yeah, I saw that version first. And unfortunately, okay, now getting back to the New Line cinema version. So yeah, in 1998, when Laserdisc was still out and it was just about to be transferred to DVD, which I was kind of pissed off about at first until I finally started liking DVD. But Laserdisc and VHS, but especially Laserdisc were known for their widescreen movies. VHS rarely ever did that. But yeah, so so Police Story So that yeah, so New Line Cinema got a hold of the Hong Kong version of Police Story, and they presented it in widescreen, and I thought, okay, because that version, the only downfall about that particular version is that that's the only copy that they made. Okay, it's not in widescreen. I mean, you need to watch this. This movie comes in 35 millimeter, so it's not really. I mean, you have to watch films in 35 millimeter. If it comes in 35 millimeter, you have to watch it in widescreen. You just have to. But because that film was rare, that particular 1988 version is rare, and there's no widescreen version at all. It's actually not too bad. I mean, it actually, even if it is modified, they did a good job not making it so. They did a good job not making it too hard to watch. It's very easy to watch. Okay, it is forgivable. So when the New Line Cinema version came out of Police Story, I thought, okay, well, all right. I thought it was gonna be just like the 1988 version with Kevin Bassett's score, So I thought, oh right, it's the widescreen version. It did say on the cover, widescreen edition. So I rented it, and I was gonna record it because that was a cool thing about Laserdisc. There was no copy protection. And that's one of the reasons why my grandfather in the Philippines and a lot of people, they would transfer Laserdisc to Betamax or Laserdisc to VHS. So I was doing that. So I rented movies from Laserdisc so I can transfer it to VHS. So when I got that particular version of Police Story, that was my state of mind. I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be the 1988 version, except it's going to be in widescreen. Lo and behold, it was a different introduction, a different score, which, it sounded like his other localized movies that came later on, like Jackie Chan's First Strike and all those other ones. It sounded just like those. It didn't match the movie. It just, the experience was not the same. It was terrible. It was horrible. I mean, the only thing I liked about it was the widescreen, but I said, fuck this shit. I didn't even want to see it anymore because Kevin Bassett's score wasn't in it, and that was the first time that I realized that that's what they normally do. That they will keep re-releasing films, they will redo the sound, they will redo the score, and I think they even cut out scenes in that version as well. I think they did. Yes. Getting back to the Bruce Lee films, they have done the same thing even now. They make so many versions of the Bruce Lee Hong Kong films that unfortunately that's what we are accustomed to. Miramax, with all the I love Miramax. There's a lot of great films from Miramax. Quentin Tarantino, the underrated Four Rooms. I love Four Rooms. I am so pissed off whenever I look at the Wikipedia information, with all due respect to Wikipedia and Rotten Tomatoes. I'm always looking at the information that, the critics panned it and they crapped on it and it's like 10% approval rating. And it's like, come on, man. It was a good film.
Room service?
Hello, Theodore.
What the fuck are you doing here?
Having a drink.
But anyways, so Miramax made some really good films. I love Miramax, but the one thing I do not agree with on Miramax and a lot of the other distribution companies is that not only they should have just taken the Hong Kong version and just put it here with the language, with the subtitles, and even give people a choice in the audio tracks to do it in the original mono language and the English dubbed if they want to. But they didn't do that. I mean, I guess, and some of them they did, but oh god, a lot of the movies nowadays, like The Terminator and American Werewolf in London, I don't know why. With all the respect to these filmmakers, I don't know why, but they're always redoing the sound. They'll add in sound and take out the original, and sometimes you get a choice to listen to the original mono track, but there are times when they don't give you a choice. In the Bruce Lee films, especially The Way of the Dragon, they redid the sound effects. So it's really, I mean, they took away the original sound effects and they added in new ones. So the experience of watching it is not the same.
Get him! Get him!
And unfortunately, the people of this generation and the people who have never seen Bruce Lee's films, that's all they're accustomed to. They don't realize that, you know, the original is so much more different. Here's another, let me give you one more example in The Way of the Dragon, okay? In Return of the Dragon, in the very introduction, when you have that really cool, you know, the characters in the beginning with the really cool art background. Now, in Return of the Dragon and a lot of the other versions, unlike the original, it just says Chuck Norris, Bob Wall, Wong In-sik. You know, so they just have the character, you know, they never even mention Melissa Longo, who's the Italian prostitute, the beautiful Italian prostitute that put her arm around Bruce Lee in the localized version, and you don't realize he actually did go home with her. So that was another thing. He didn't realize she was a prostitute because, once again, he couldn't speak English.
Sit down. Make yourself at home.
Of course, he bailed once he found out. Yeah, so in the very beginning, that's what we all were accustomed to. But when you see the original Hong Kong Cantonese version of The Way of the Dragon, and this is so Bruce Lee, okay? This is so Bruce Lee. I was not surprised that he did this. This is great. No martial art film that ever had a real martial artist be in a film, nobody has ever done this. That's what made this even much more unique. So what Bruce Lee did was, when he did the credit, he'll say Chuck Norris, and he says 7-time world karate champion. He also credited Bob Wall. And then he talks about Wong In-sik. He'll say the name of the martial artist and credit them below them. I mean, that little detail is amazing, and unfortunately, us Americans did not receive that particular version, and that was very disappointing. But yeah, it's just little details like that people do not know about, and that's why it's so important to watch the original versions. And that's one of the reasons why Enter the Dragon is probably the most popular of all his films, is because you know, we are just so damn confused about the Hong Kong version. I mean, people still love his Hong Kong movies, but you know what? Like, okay, I've said this many times before, and I'm going to keep saying this motto again in the future, and I'll probably say it when I end this when I end this episode. If you do not see it in its purest form, in Mandarin or Cantonese, you have not seen it at all. Now, I want to promote this to you guys. This is the one. This is the one. Okay, of all of the Bruce Lee versions that I have seen, okay, this collection is the best collection of them all. Okay, because they all have. Not only do they give you a choice to have the redone audio and the English dubbed audio, along with, you know, but they also have the original mono theatrical tracks of all his films. Okay, so that version is the version. Now we come to our clip. Okay, now one of the reasons why I filmed this, and I'm going to be doing this with a few other, this is actually more so of an introduction to the film clips that I have released on this channel. Now, I try to be as meticulous as I possibly can in explaining the scenes in descriptions, but I also got to take in consideration, and I kind of do it myself out of confession, a lot of people are not going to actually sit down and watch and read the descriptions, especially if it's very deep, and I try to make it as detailed and interesting as I possibly can, and I think I've kind of failed. So yeah, not a lot of people are actually going to sit down and read the descriptions, and a lot of people do not have that access. I mean, I think a lot of people, like for me, I have a TV where it gives you a YouTube choice. It's like a YouTube app, and on that YouTube app there is no section. You can't even read a description. You can't even make a comment. So I'm making this this particular introduction for those people, you know, because I think, you know, out of, you know, in respect to the theme of this channel, which is not only preserving the originals and giving notoriety where notoriety is due, I want to go to that extent of explaining it the best way that I possibly can. So, with that said, okay, this particular clip I released just recently is a clip from the original theatrical mono track of Fist of Fury. Now, Fist of Fury, or Chinese Connection. So Fist of Fury. Okay, so the Big Boss and Fist of Fury not only were directed by Lo Wei, but they both, when they filmed it in Mandarin. Now Bruce Lee couldn't speak Mandarin, so he had to kind of come as close as possible. But when they recorded it, when they filmed it, it was filmed in Mandarin. So that's the original. The original audio of The Big Boss is Mandarin. Okay? And so if you don't see it in that version with English subtitles, you have not seen Bruce Lee's films at all, no matter how many times you've seen it. Okay, you may have seen it more than I have, which is 1,000,000 times. It's still not this. You still have not seen it until you've seen the original, untampered Mandarin mono track of The Big Boss and Fist of Fury. So, in the Mandarin, even the Cantonese track of Fist of Fury, Mr. Petrov, the Russian fighter played by Bob Baker, who was Bruce Lee's bodyguard in real life. Now, in the localized version, you have this guy who does this he does this Russian accent.
Now that I'm here in Shanghai, I'm your man.
Ah, I must say, it's very gratifying to hear that.
Good.
What people do not know, now if you don't believe me, I'm going to send a link in the description, just like I did in the film clip of that I sent. In Wikipedia, it talks about that. But did you know that Bruce Lee did the voice of Mr. Petrov?
Now that I escaped from Russia, I'm your man.
没有关系，一切由我，你放心。
Okay.
Actually, it's not just because it's Bruce Lee's voice. His character is actually a lot more likable because of that. Yeah, his character's a lot more likable. But yeah, so Bruce Lee does the voice of Mr. Petrov in The Big Boss. Now, I want to pinpoint some scenes in there that I mentioned in the description. Now, not only do you hear Bruce Lee's voice, you also can hear his laugh. Now, I made 2 different versions of the film. I did it with subtitles, just so you know what they're saying, and I did it without subtitles. The reason, and I originally intended to do it without subtitles, because I didn't want you to be distracted. I wanted you to really listen very carefully to Bruce Lee's voice, because the scene is so rare, unfortunately rare to us Americans. But it even goes to the extent that you can hear his laugh. And in case you don't know what his laugh sounds like, watch the Lost interview with Pierre Burton of Bruce Lee, where he does laugh. So if you need reference, watch the Pierre Burton interview with Bruce Lee, so when you hear Bruce Lee's laugh, go back and listen to it again, and you'll know which laugh is Bruce Lee's. So it's very interesting. And then the last clip I put on there was, actually, it almost was like a big hint Easter egg. It was kind of funny. It was like a hint joke, where Bruce Lee, after he punches the right hand man in the nuts, and then he kind of pushes him aside and looks at Mr. Suzuki and Mr. Petrov.
Let me take care of him.
Let me take care of him.
Yeah, so it's actually pretty interesting how Bruce Lee's voice as Mr. Petrov is like Bruce Lee is talking to himself, and he's going, "Let me take care of him." So yeah. So I just thought that was really interesting, and because there's still so many rare Bruce Lee stuff out there, and they don't have anything like that out there on YouTube. I just wanted to share that with you guys. And I did put a subtitle version in there because it is unfortunately it's a rare artifact, and yeah, and just so you guys know what they're saying, and plus to give you an idea that the dialogue, now this is from the original dialogue of Fist of Fury, so you're going to see that there is a difference between the original Fist of Fury and the localized version. So it is different, and so you'll get to kind of see the difference between the two. There's a few other things I'd like to share with you guys. So first thing, Pepsi can from Korea. But yeah, I actually dressed up for this occasion. So, as you can see, I'm wearing my Chinese Yao Dai, and normally I do wear this. I mean, this is my belt of choice, and yeah, and actually, yeah, and I've been trying to learn how to put this thing on for about like 5-6 years, because now the reason why I wore this is because one of the reasons why I wear it is because first of all, if you go outside, I do wear this. I mean, I don't wear a regular leather belt. I just wear this when I go outside, and you can wear this, and it does. You can actually wear this in formal gatherings. Especially if you dress up especially if you dress up. And yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I like to wear it too is because it's actually kind of cool. Like, especially when it's a breezy day, the Yao Dai will kind of flow in the wind, and I kind of feel like a Japanese anime character. It's actually kind of cool. But yeah, so normally, like, I try to learn how to put this on, and so yeah, it's called a Yao Dai. A lot of people say it's a sash. I hate that word. But yeah, people call it a sash or a Kung Fu sash, or some people say Kung Fu sash. It's not really entire. Yeah, they do. Kung Fu practitioners do wear this, but I wear it. First of all, I wear it in honor of Bruce Lee in The Big Boss. When I was a kid, when I was watching The Big Boss, when it when I thought at the time it was called Fist of Fury, uh, I did see. I mean, what really stood out to me was his white Yao Dai. I didn't even know it was a Yao Dai. I just saw this really cool white thing that he was wearing on the side, and I thought it was actually attached to his T-shirt. So, I mean, that stood out to me for the longest time. I'm thinking, wow, what's that cool thing he's wearing? Or that's kind of flowing in the wind. You know, I want to wear that. What is that? So it wasn't until 5 years ago, thanks to YouTube, that I found out that it was actually called a Gongfu sash, or it's really called a Yao Dai, which it's in Chinese, it just means belt. And so yeah, that's what it's called, a Yao Dai. And I've unfortunately, it took me 5 years because I wanted to put it on exactly the way Bruce Lee did it in The Big Boss. This is not really the way he did it. I mean, it's the closest as possible, and I just kind of modified it to make it my own. I wanted to wear it exactly the way Bruce Lee did it, and I tried to find all these tutorials on how to do it, and it just wasn't the same. They all had different versions. And the most disappointing thing, okay, I think it's really cool that there's a lot of YouTube videos where you have Shaolin monks actually teaching you. They have this entire video series of them teaching you Kung Fu Shaolin style, and I think that's great. And they do have the outfit with the Yao Dai and all of that. But the one thing that I wish that they could do, I've even written some of these sifus, I've actually asked them, and even I think there was an abbot too, there was a Buddhist abbot who was actually teaching Kung Fu too. I asked them in the comments section, can you please do a tutorial on how you put on your Yao Dai? And because I want to put it on like that, and there is nothing. Yeah!
这个没什么了不起。
So yeah, I had to learn how to put it on myself. And actually, you know what, guys? What makes this Yao Dai very unique is that this is from Hong Kong. I normally get my stuff from Hong Kong. Now, I'm going to put a link in the description for you guys too, if you're interested. There is a online clothing place called Chinese Clothing Online. These guys are from Hong Kong. They are from Kowloon, which is interesting because Bruce Lee is from Kowloon. So they are from Kowloon. They make authentic Chinese clothes, and they specialize in Bruce Lee stuff, Jackie Chan outfits, just traditional Chinese wares, Kung Fu. I'm sure there's another name for it, but I'm just going to say Kung Fu slippers. But they also have Yao Dais, and that's where I got my Yao Dais. I got it from them. So to me, it's like a personal bragging right. A lot of people, they have their Yao Dais from the USA. With all due respect to the USA, they have it from the USA. They have it from other countries, but I have mine from Hong Kong, from Kowloon. So yeah, so for you guys, if you guys want to get a Yao Dai, if you're interested in getting, they even have Bruce Lee's long sleeve button shirt from The Big Boss. I mean, they sell all that stuff, even his pants from The Big Boss, and from Enter the Dragon and all that. So yeah, so if you guys are interested in getting Yao Dais, authentic Yao Dais, go to Chinese Clothing Online, and they'll have it there. And if you guys don't have a description on your app, ChineseClothingOnline.com. That's it. And so yeah, and And I'm also going to ask you guys, if you guys know how, I mean, watch The Big Boss, watch Bruce Lee when he has his Yao Dai, okay? Especially for these sash experts and people who have a gift of observation. Really look at his Yao Dai. That's how I tried to put this on, was just by observation. But if you guys can come up with a more authentic, better way, like really look at Bruce Lee's Yao Dai. If you can tell me how you think he did it, either tell me in the comments section or make your own video and maybe send me the link. You know, because I would really love to know how Bruce Lee... I mean, I was so obsessed by this that I actually had a dream. I had a dream that I met Bruce Lee. And he, you know, this was like in some Comic-Con style convention. There's all these people and things going on. Bruce was like in the center, just talking with people. And I go up to Bruce Lee and I say, Mr. Lee, you know, he was expecting that I'd ask him for an autograph. You know, of course, I'd love to talk with him. I mean, of course, a lot of people say to celebrities, you know, I'd love to be your friend. And you know, but I really wish I could have been Bruce Lee's friend. I wish I could have known him on a personal level. I mean, I know millions of people say that about the people that they love. But I mean, I truly mean that. But anyway, so I went up to Bruce Lee. I mean, I would have asked him if I really did meet him. I'd go up to him instead of asking for him. I would say, Mr. Lee, would it be possible? And I would have my Yao Dai in my hand, and I'd say, this was in my dream. Okay, this was in my dream. Mr. Lee, can you please show me how you put your Yao Dai on the way you did in The Big Boss? I asked him that in my dream, and he didn't say a word. He just very kindly, you know, and submissively, he just kind of just walked behind me, took my Yao Dai, didn't say a word, and he just kind of wrapped it around my waist and just put it on. I don't remember how he did it, but it was just great how he just generously just did it. He just kind of, without saying a word, he just went kind of behind me, put the Yao Dai on me, and that was my dream. But what I also want to ask you guys is that in the Hong Kong films of the 70s, like the martial art films of the 70s, there was a lot of guys who had Yao Dais, and those were cool. I mean, a lot of it did look something like this, and they had the loop and all of that. But there were also a lot of films that I saw, and actually Bruce Lee did this in The Way of the Dragon, where people had their Yao Dais, but they had one tail on one side, and they had one tail on the other side. Now, I've been trying to rack my brain on how they did that. There is no tutorial anywhere on the internet. I tried Googling, I looked everywhere. There is nothing that talks about how you put on the Yao Dai in that way. You know, it's like I feel like I wish I could have gone to Shaw Brothers Studios or I don't know. I wish I could have gone to Shaw Brothers Studios and asked the costume designers, or go to Hong Kong, in the Hong Kong, you know, the film lots, and ask the costume designers, can you please show me how you put on the Yao Dai, especially the way they did it in the 70s? You know, that's what I wish I can do. But yeah, if there's any of you out there, even Sifus, okay, especially in China, if you guys get a hold of this, if you know how to put the Yao Dai on, you know, with two tails on the side, can you please make a video or even send me a tutorial in the comment section? I would really appreciate that. I would appreciate it very much. Okay, because it's kind of unfortunate that I had to learn how to do this myself, and it took me 5 years of trial and error to get it like this. And I know it's still not the final version. I'm just kind of accustomed to it, but I certainly would like to do it the right way. So if you guys can please show me, that would be great. And oh, and these gloves. These are my favorite gloves. I wore this for this occasion, for this episode, because, you know, Bruce Lee in The Game of Death, you know, the canary yellow and black. And actually, canary yellow is my favorite color, and that's one of the reasons why the Scott Julie 27 logo is canary yellow because that represents my favorite colors, and the canary yellow and black, that is out of respect to the Game of Death. So yeah. I just wore my Yao Dai. I wore this for this occasion, just for this episode. And so yeah, if you guys can show me how to do that, that would be great. And here's a few other things before I sign off. And by the way, guys, if you've come this far, I know this has been close to 50 minutes. Thank you for staying this long with me. Okay, thank you for staying this long with me. I hope I have not bored you guys. I tried to make this as interesting as possible. I hope these tidbits, I hope you guys really I hope you guys aren't going to be closed-minded and be like, oh, it's 50 minutes. Oh, I'm always paranoid about that when I make films. I'm just trying to I'm kind of thinking, oh, people's attention spans are the size of a piece of lint, oh, with all due respect to them. I mean, that's all I keep thinking about. I guess you could say I'm a perfectionist to the extreme, to the point where there are times where when I put videos up, I just want to take them off. And I do, because because I do look at the views, okay? I do look at the views and I'm going, okay, well, people are watching it, they're not commenting, they're not liking, so they probably hate it, or it's probably stupid, or I'm doing something wrong, so I take it off, and I try to and I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna have to redo this, so my mind goes nuts when it comes to stuff like that. But anyways, so once again, guys, this version, get this version, okay? Now I have in the clip, in the Fist of Fury clip that I sent, the two clips of the subtitled and the unsubtitled version of Bruce Lee as the voice of Mr. Petrov in Fist of Fury, I did send a link to this particular edition of Bruce Lee. Now, they have all his films in Hong Kong, and they also have the Game of Death and Game of Death 2. Now, my recommendation, okay, you can just get rid of Game of Death and Game of Death 2, okay? All of the other films, they do come with the original monotrack of his films, okay? So those are the ones that are worth keeping. The Game of Death and Game of Death 2, just discard it, because unfortunately, well, Game of Death 2 Bruce Lee has nothing to do with that movie. And it's funny because one of the main, with all due respect to this guy, one of the main characters in Game of Death 2 is Tong Long. Tong Long. Oh my gosh. I mean, isn't that so obvious? For those of you that don't know, that's Bruce Lee's character in The Way of the Dragon. But yeah, in Game of Death, so you can just be rid of that. You don't really need that. And then in this version of the Game of Death, they do have Cantonese with English subtitles, and they also have the original. They do have the original mono track of Game of Death, but it was just kind of poorly made. I mean, the only reason why I wanted to get that version was because now the one I do recommend. Okay, so it's this one, this particular version of the Game of Death. Okay. This is from the 20th Century Fox CBS Fox Film collection, and they just transferred it from the VHS and the Laserdisc version to DVD. So this version actually is the best one. Now the difference between this one and that one, now they did cut some stuff out in the beginning in that version, and that's why I didn't really want it anymore, and the sound just didn't sound right. But this one is the full version, okay? Now, but the only downfall is that this one, okay, it is in widescreen, but it doesn't fill, if you have a widescreen television, it doesn't fill the entire screen, okay? It's just kind of, it's like a pan and scan, but it is in widescreen. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, for those of you that have the untampered Star Wars trilogy on DVD, it's just like that, okay? And by the way, that's another topic I'm going to bring up in another episode. I mean, I really hope one day George Lucas is going to bring the original untampered trilogy. But yeah, that's another topic. But yeah, so it's basically the widescreen format in this one is just like how it is in the 2004 untampered Star Wars trilogy, on DVD, the original theatrical version. So yeah, that's the only downfall. But yeah, I do recommend that you get this version. And the other two, Game of Death and Game of Death 2, that version, discard it. Okay? and get this version. And I think this version, I only got this for like $2. Brand new. It's not used. It's brand new. $2. So, and then, okay, so before I go to this topic, I want to give a shout out to Odie O'Reilly. Odieioreilly. Odie O'Reilly. That is a YouTube username. Now, Odie O'Reilly specializes in making these. I've never seen anything like his channel, okay? I'm a big fan of his. I've told him that many times. And there's times I wish I can personally talk to him, either on the phone or an email. I mean, I want to do some projects with him, actually. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to say that in the comments section because it's kind of inappropriate. I wouldn't feel right doing that on his video, So I just thought maybe hopefully if he's watching this and he's come this far, with all due respect, because he is a massive Bruce Lee fan, I hope he's come this far, but and he hears me say that. But yeah, so I want to give a shout out to Odie O'Reilly, and I want to let you guys know that if all the Bruce Lee fans out there, if you want to see some really amazing, rare Bruce Lee stuff, go to his site. Okay, he's been doing this for about almost 10 years, maybe more. But he makes some really good Bruce Lee. He has very rare Bruce Lee stuff. And the way he films things, the way he edits things are very unique. It's very Odie O'Reilly. Okay, it's very unique. He has certain types of music that is very identifiable to him. But he is a huge Bruce Lee fan. I actually compare him to John Little. Now, John Little, I hope Shannon Lee is watching this, and if she is, I'm a big fan of yours. I love you. But and thank you for the Bruce Lee Foundation. Thank you for everything, okay, in connection to Bruce Lee. And thank you for allowing us to be able to distribute Bruce Lee stuff without it being a situation where there's copyright and all that. And there's another episode that I'm going to be, a very serious Bruce Lee episode. I'm going to be making a lot of Bruce Lee episodes, but this one is going to be this is going to be a serious topic. And I hope that Shannon Lee will watch this, because I want to start a campaign against, in trying to bring back the original 1971 Mandarin cut of The Big Boss, which unfortunately are only being held by private collectors who are refusing to release it to the public. And that's the last major Bruce Lee artifact that's left. And with the help of Shannon Lee, who probably would, and she has the right to have this. So so anyways, that's going to be a different topic. But John Little, in my opinion, okay, he's one of the best Bruce Lee guys. Anything that he does that's Bruce Lee, I completely trust with all my heart. I think that, with all due respect, if all of the Lee family passes away and they need somebody to carry on with the Bruce Lee Foundation, John Little is the #1 guy for that. Because of what he did for the Bruce Lee Library, and I want to give credit to Miss Linda Lee Cadwell. I want to give you credit. You are such a great writer. Okay, guys, the best biography of Bruce Lee of all of them is Bruce Lee, The Man Only I Knew. Get that book only. And the Bruce Lee story is good too, but the Bruce Lee, The Man Only I Knew, that's the greatest biography. And actually, Dragging the Bruce Lee story was based on that biography written by Linda Lee. But in all of the Bruce Lee so John Little put this multi-volume book series together called the Bruce Lee Library. The Tao of Chinese Kung Fu, all of the interviews that he ever did from, I think, 1958 to 1973. A lot more completed version of Jeet Kune Do. And these are all of, Miss Lee Cadwell gave him the entire Bruce Lee archive, all of it. And he made a multi-volume book series with all of his surviving writings and everything that was well preserved, and he put it into a multi-volume book series. And another but my favorite one, okay, even over How to Express the Human Body, that's another one. It shows you the entire Bruce Lee's workout schedule. That was another volume in How to Express the Human Body. But personally, my favorite of all the Bruce Lee library is this one. The Letters of the Dragon. Now, this is the closest version to a Bruce Lee autobiography that will ever be written. These are, I mean, God bless everybody that Bruce Lee knew who actually collected his letters and gave it to John Little, and what John Little did in chronological order from 1958 to 1973, when he was still in Hong Kong before he came to San Francisco in 1959. These are all the letters that he ever wrote, all the way up until July 20th, 1973. The last in this one, it was the last letter that he wrote to his to Adrian Marshall, his attorney. He wrote the letter, he put it in the mailbox, and then drove to Betty Ting Pei's house. And we all know what happened. We all know what happened, in that after that. But prior to him going to Betty Ting Pei's house, on July 20th, 1973, he took the letter to Adrian Marshall that he wrote, put it in the mailbox, and went to Betty Ting Pei's house. And from that point on, we all know what happened. So Adrian Marshall did not get that letter until a week later, and he mentions that in the footnotes. But yeah, guys, this was put together by John Little, and it's called Letters of the Dragon. This is the closest thing to an autobiography of Bruce Lee that will ever be written, so I recommend you get this. And, but yeah, Odie O'Reilly, to me, I compare Odie O'Reilly to John Little, and that is a huge compliment. I mean, I'm a big fan of Odie O'Reilly, so guys, Bruce Lee fans out there, go to Odie O'Reilly's YouTube page. Okay, Bruce Lee Central is great too. Odie O'Reilly is another one that's worth going to. So go to Odie O'Reilly's page. And speaking of John Little, here's another recommendation to you guys. Besides Bruce Lee, A Warrior's Journey. Now, God bless John Little. Because of John Little, we have the original Bruce Lee version of Game of Death. And he makes phenomenal documentaries too. Besides the multi-volume book series, he's a great documentarian, especially of Bruce Lee stuff. So now, the thing about the Bruce Lee The Warrior's Journey, if you get it by itself, it's extremely expensive. Okay? So I would recommend that you get A Warrior's Journey along with something else. So for example, here, let me show you another thing. Very fast. This version of Enter the Dragon, okay? The 2-disc special edition of Enter the Dragon, okay, on DVD. Now this one has many special features besides the movie itself. They have an introduction by Linda Lee, interviews of Linda Lee, Cadwell, talking about certain topics. But this also contains Bruce Lee, A Warrior's Journey. And this DVD was only $10 new, okay? Unlike just getting Warrior's Journey by itself, it's over $50. Okay, new. And I think even used, it's $50. Okay, so either get it through this version or get it through this version. Now, this version is very special too. Okay, this one, okay, contains Bruce Lee, A Warrior's Journey, but John Little also made another documentary called In Pursuit of the Dragon. That's the last documentary that John Little made. Okay, now the thing about Pursuit of the Dragon, now a lot of people on YouTube, God bless them, a lot of people on YouTube, they've made their own videos about going on all the Bruce Lee locations. There was one guy who actually went to Rome and filmed himself, there's a few people that did that, and filmed himself on all the locations where the Way of the Dragon was filmed. John Little went to the extreme, okay? He went to every single minute detail location on all of the films that Bruce Lee did, from his Hong Kong movies like The Big Boss, all the locations of The Big Boss, including the fight scene between him and the boss, that courtyard, which is now a monastery. So he went to Pak Chong, Thailand, and he went to all the areas in Pak Chong, Thailand, especially the particular street where Bruce Lee comes out of the brothel. It looks exactly the same. Maybe just one sign or two is taken off, but that street looks exactly the same as it was in The Big Boss. So he goes at every single location that Big Boss was filmed, Fist of Fury. Now, Fist of Fury was very limited because most of it was filmed in Golden Harvest Studios. And then he talks about Enter the Dragon, all the areas that Enter the Dragon was filmed. And not only does he show the filming, he talks about it. He talks about the facts about that certain area. So he gives you a little history lesson, all these little factoids and detail. You know that particular lifestyle is like.
It was up this walkway in 1971 that Bruce Lee filmed what for many people remains perhaps his most inspirational scene. It was where he combated racial injustice when he was denied entry to this park, which is called the Parc de Louis de Camoes, right here in Macau.
The scene was based on a long-standing legend that the Chinese have passed down through many generations. The legend has it that during the Japanese occupation of Shanghai, a park in the Bund was declared off-limits to Chinese and dogs. It was a national insult that would be repeated by Chinese families with shame, that they could be made to feel as second-class citizens in their own country. However, that's Wangpu Park in Shanghai. The park that Golden Harvest Studios selected to represent it in Fist of Fury is the Parc de Louis Camoes in Macau.
But the best segment of this documentary is The Way of the Dragon. He goes to Rome, and it's this prolonged, detailed scene about about the Da Vinci Airport, where the airport scene was. He goes to the Colosseum of Rome and goes to the special. There was even areas in the Colosseum where Bruce Lee filmed with Chuck Norris that was closed to the public at the time, and I think it's still closed to the public to this day. So that, I mean, thanks be to Bob Wall. If it wasn't for Bob Wall, that scene would have never have happened. Okay, Bruce Lee had special access to the Colosseum of Rome because of Bob Wall, and I think his wife. I could be wrong, but it could be his wife. But he went to even the scene where Bruce Lee and Nora Mao, take a tour around Rome, like where they were going by that fountain, that really cool little fountain place with all the fountains and that huge one.
Visible from Lee's vantage point are the 8 columns that remain of the Temple of Saturn, which was erected in 17 BC. The pair then move on from Roman times to the Renaissance era by traveling 54.6 miles east of Rome to the town of Tivoli, where they pause to visit the magnificent Villa d'Este. The Villa d'Este is renowned for its lush garden, statues, and magnificent fountains. It dates back to 150 AD. In The Way of the Dragon, 4 fountains are shown. When Lee's character walks down the stairs and turns right, he observes the Fontana dell'Ovato, or Oval Fountain. Lee's character is next seen walking the Avenue of the 100 Fountains. The fountain jets have the shape of lilies, eagles, lions, obelisks, and small boats, each of which is a miniature fountain unto itself. The 100 fountains are engineered on 3 levels, in which the waters of Tivoli's 3 rivers are said to slide symbolically. The fountains are a wonder of hydraulic engineering, making use of ancient Roman hydraulics, as well as a Roman tunnel that diverts water from the Anian River to provide water to the sequence of the fountains. The fountain that really opens the eyes of Lee's character in the film is the Neptune Fountain. This is the only fountain in the Villa d'Este to be realized during the 20th century. Its spray shoots up some 20 feet. It is these flumes that spray Lee's character as he walks by on the upper level. Since the end of World War I, the villa has belonged to the Italian state, and extensive preservation and restoration efforts have been made over the years to ensure the integrity of its artifacts.
So John Little goes to that area and he gives you a very detailed history lesson on that on all the particular areas that Bruce Lee filmed each scene in Rome. And it gives you, and you know that Bruce Lee knew this when he was filming it. And yeah, it just makes you appreciate The Way of the Dragon even more, and it also makes you appreciate Bruce Lee even more because he was very meticulous in choosing these particular areas. And what people don't understand, okay, The Way of the Dragon is probably one of the most important films of the 20th century. Next to Enter the Dragon, The Way of the Dragon is one of the most important films in the 20th century. People don't understand that, okay? This was the first Hong Kong movie ever made that was filmed outside of China. First, the very first. Nobody in China in 1972 has ever seen Rome, ever, until Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee was like the ambassador of China when he went to Rome to film that movie. So it was a very, very important movie in so many ways. I mean, and guys, even think about it this way, okay, with all due respect. I think this was symbolic too. The gang. The gang in the film.
Get out. Why? That's why. Oh. Go. You better cool it, baby. Chinese kung fu. Let's go.
Anybody's around.
If you pay attention, that particular gang had every single race in that one gang. And what was awesome, it wasn't just for the sake of blending in different nationalities. They all blended in together very well, not just in the film. The chemistry was not just there in the filming, but even outside the filming.
Listen! Bastard got away!
Go get him, but no gun!
Who can do karate better than the Japanese?
So I think Bruce Lee intentionally did it for that. I mean, he does things for that reason too, and I think that was a part of why he did that. And it was just so interesting. But yeah, so yeah, The Way of the Dragon is one of the most important films ever made, and I don't think people really understand that this was the first movie that China has ever seen outside of China, and it's the first time they've ever seen Italy in that way. And so Bruce Lee, of course, had to make sure that everything was meticulous, everything was in detail, so that way people had an idea like, wow, this is what life is like outside of China, especially in Rome. Whoa. And even the United States, when Enter the Dragon came out, it was the same thing. We never saw what Hong Kong looked like in its in its purest detail until Enter the Dragon came out. And actually, you know, so speaking of Game of Death, okay. Now, I agree. The Bruce Lee's version will always be the immortalized version. Okay, I grew up with the 1978 version of Game of Death until Warrior's Journey came out, and now I'm just stuck with that version. But I still appreciate the 1978 version, okay, for a few reasons. Now, if you keep an open mind, it's actually not that bad. It's actually good. I mean, even the characters, even if they don't look like Bruce Lee, they put their own personality into it, and it's actually very respectful. Unlike the crappy fucking movies they've made recently of Bruce Lee, it's very insulting. But in 1978, those characters, they actually did not do a bad job, okay? Yes, they did the cardboard cutouts and all that other stuff, but if you keep an open mind, it was actually a very well-made film. And actually, Robert Clouse, who directed it, he actually paid more detailed attention to Hong Kong in this one than he did in Enter the Dragon. Enter the Dragon, they had a lot of stuff in Hong Kong, but it was actually kind of a preview it was a prologue in comparison to what he did in the Game of Death in 1978. He did Macau, he did all these detailed areas in Hong Kong, and from that point on, I think, other films started doing that, like Force Vengeance in 1983, they went to Hong Kong. All these films started going to Hong Kong, but I think it started with the Game of Death in 1978, when Robert Clouse started really showing people more minute details. Another great thing about the 1978 version of Game of Death is Bob Wall. Bob Wall is I don't know how many times he's been world champion, but he is a very phenomenal martial artist. And unfortunately, you don't really know that because, with all due respect, you know, Bob Wall gets the crap beat out of him by Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee beats him so easily that you never had really a chance to see his martial art ability. There really wasn't that much that he did in Enter the Dragon, even in The Way of the Dragon. But in Game of Death, you actually get to see his martial art ability a lot more in that version of the Game of Death, when he fights Sammo Hung in the ring. And when he fights Billy Lowe in the locker room.
Kyle! Kyle, you all right?
So you get to see a lot more of that. You get to see a lot more of his martial art ability in that movie. And let's go back to the orchestra, okay? We were talking about Peter Thomas's orchestra in The Big Boss. Well, the one great thing that came out of... another great thing... Okay, well, before I go to there, the actors did a great job. Colleen Camp has done some great movies. But I think Colleen Camp did a great acting job in that film. And yeah, and the cool thing about Robert Clouse and his films, especially China O'Brien, when he makes bad guys, he makes bad guys. When he makes a syndicate, he makes evil syndicates. These guys did a great job playing evil bad guys in this this film, in Robert Clouse's movies. So I just want to give them credit for that too, especially Colleen Camp. She was, that supposed funeral scene.
$10, you can have your food.
Yes, I understand. It's cheap.
I'm glad you understand. And I'm glad you're pulling yourself together.
Oh, no, I'm not going to cry anymore.
God knows the police would like to nail them. But there's no way to prove it.
Don't you understand anything? Everybody looked at them, but not one person could see anything.
And even when she was in the hospital.
Good afternoon, Miss Morris. We haven't officially met, but my name is Steiner. This is Dr. Land.
How do you do, Miss Morris? We were informed of your improvement. You are so beautiful, beautiful.
What do you want?
We were just passing by. Wondered if we could do anything for you. Is there something you might need?
There's nothing I need, okay?
Your album is doing very well on the charts. It's going to make lots of money.
We know, Miss Morris, what has happened, the terrible strain that you have been under. We hope that possibly we can assist somehow. You know, maybe get your career moving again.
Get out!
There's
Get
nothing...
out!
It's Dr. Land's intention to try to help you. He could be very...
You murderers! Get out of here! Get out! Get out of here!
So she did a great acting job in that movie. It was a good movie. But getting back to the composition, John Barry's score. that was one of the greatest things that came out of the 1978 version of Game of Death is John Barry's score. Yeah. And so to me, honestly, I mean, I now truly appreciate the composition in the Warrior's Journeys version of Game of Death. I mean, it took a little while to kind of get adjusted to it, but now I am. But I will always love John Barry's score. It's funny because I would have never have guessed at first that it would be John Barry, because John Barry has a specific sound. Okay, he did scores for movies like High Road to China, Somewhere in Time, one of my favorite. Well, to me, it's one of the greatest love stories ever made. It's like an episode. It's another episode of The Twilight Zone, but it's one of the greatest love stories I've ever seen. And Titanic and The Notebook is a reverberation of that film. But anyways, so High Road to China, Somewhere in Time, he did the composition for that. He did the composition for Dances with Wolves. So, and they all have the same, it's just like John Williams. It has the same particular sound that when you listen to it, you know it's John Barry. In the Game of Death, I would probably say the Anne and Billy Lowe love theme is probably the only time where you'll know that that's John Barry's trademark sound. Outside of that, you would never have guessed. But he did an amazing job in that composition of the Game of Death, especially the main title theme. Oh my gosh, it's the coolest. I was actually playing that yesterday, really loud. You know, I had the window open. I was just blazing that theme. That theme is just awesome. But yeah, that's one of the greatest things that came out of the Game of Death. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. This very special Bruce Lee episode of Scott Julie 27. If you've come this far, thank you for visiting me. Thank you for just hanging out, talking about Bruce Lee. So if you're interested, please look at all the other videos that I have on there. Now, I'm going to be making videos like this in the future, kind of giving a special introduction on all the videos that I've made. I've made a few tributes. I did a tribute to The Neverending Story, and I please recommend you guys watch that, and especially with an open mind. Now, I will explain more about that particular tribute, and there is a story behind it in the description, so please take a look at that. I also did a tribute to Bruce Lee and Nora Mao. So first of all, that of all the films I have so far, that one has been a surprising big hit, and I really appreciate you guys watching it and giving your likes to it. So yeah, I really, really, really appreciate the reactions that I got from that video, and I encourage you guys, if you haven't seen it, please watch it. I hope you guys like it. It's just, I wanted to make something very different, just like all the other films I want to make. I want to make things that nobody's ever seen before. I don't want to just be cliche, but I'm not just going to do it just for the sake of it. I did put certain songs that people have never really heard before because it did fit the piece. But I wasn't just going to do it like the way other people have commonly done theirs, So yeah, I have a Bruce Lee and Nora Mao tribute, and I hope that Nora Mao herself will watch this, and if she does, I hope that she has a smile. I hope that it'll make her feel good when she sees it. It's out of pure respect for her friendship with Bruce Lee. It wasn't trying to promote them being a potential couple. It was just a friendship, and I really hope that I did right with you, and I hope I did right with all the Bruce Lee Nora Mao fans when I made that, and so far it seems like I did, and I appreciate that. So feel free to watch that one, and I'm going to be making a lot, and yes, please watch that Bruce Lee as the voice of Mr. Petrov from Fist of Fury with and without the subtitles. But I'm also going to be making some more Bruce Lee stuff in the future. Okay, I got a tribute coming up. I got some special documentaries coming up. So yeah, I'm going to be making some more Bruce Lee stuff, and I want to try to make it as special as I possibly can. I got some help with me, and we're going to do the very best we can. To make this as special as humanly possible for you Bruce Lee fans. And so yeah, I'm going to end here, and thank you for watching. Thank you for sitting with me for this long. I hope you enjoyed this episode, And please stay tuned for another episode. Stay tuned for more film clips. I got some really cool ones coming up for you guys, all in relation to the subject matter we've been talking about here. I got some really cool tutorials later on. So thank you for watching. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon. And as Bruce Lee says to Mr. Longstreet, may it be well with you.